Last night, Anthony Albanese came out with his budget paper. If you read between the lines, as Andrew Clennell does on Sky News, it screams for an early election. Check this out.
I think some of this is pretty brazen, frankly. The inflation forecast, claiming this is all deflationary, including the stage 3 tax cuts. I mean, come on.
And also halving migration, if they can do it, sure.
Well, yeah, I don't believe they'll be able to do it.
Why don't you believe they'll be able to do it?
Well, they haven't demonstrated they could so far. They had a target this year of 375. They're saying it's going to be 395. And the figures out early in January and February indicated the net migration was still even higher than that level.
And this does feed into the view that there will be an early election, though, because if there is an early election, say September, October, November, it won't be October because Queensland is then, but say September, November, December, then you don't have to live with the reality of what Andrew's saying, i.e. we got the inflation forecast wrong.
That's why it's brazen.
So, Andrew, but at what point can the government go to the polls without actually needing some reason to go to the polls, some political reason?
Well, I think, yeah. I don't think it would be September. Yeah. Everyone's talking about November 30, December 7. Look, I had messages this evening and even this morning from the opposition. I can tell you their view, at least, is that this budget means, with the inflation forecast, there's an early election. They're thinking about what they do in this situation, which is don't let it get to the end of the year and inflation's not 2.75%. You look like an idiot. Get out there now. And there is a belief in Labor at the moment, Kieran, I can tell you, that they can still win majority government. Yeah. They believe that their vote is holding up in WA, popular to contrary belief, because that's a key battleground.
And Laura, that's exactly right.
They held up that GST deal, which I think from the budget papers we've just learned is worth about $50 billion to WA. They lose 4 seats there in their minority territory. Look, I don't know whether we can say early election. I think what this budget does is gives them the option of an early election.
I agree with that.
But if, economists are starting to say, oh, okay, we're going to get an interest rate cut early next year, surely they wait for that and go just after.
Well, the Treasury says that we won't get it till mid-year.
So I find one other thing very bizarre from the fact that there is so much spending out to the out years with very big yawning gaps in terms of the deficit and the debt that emerges. That's where the criticism is going to come. And so then selectively picking off, I don't know, something like energy rebates, rental rebates, take pressure off at one end, but they're adding pressure on at the other end. And I think that's the issue. And then the second factor is as well suggesting that all this money is going to go into the economy and somehow it's not going to add to inflation.
Exactly.
That is going to be the real pressure point.
The latest Anthony Albanese can call an election is May next year, 2025. But if he tries to preempt it or tries to strategize around it, this budget, as you heard, very much screams that he is. He's handing out a lot of money, which is going to make inflation 10 times worse. And we're about to see exactly whether he moves early on it, depending on how the polling goes, depending on how their think tanks go, because Anthony Albanese doesn't have an original thought in his life. And we're going to find out very soon if he calls that election before the Queensland election or after or well after the election, closer to next year. As you heard mentioned, there are a few considerations. Obviously, there's the October 27th election for the Queensland state election. There's also the 5th and 6th of November, which is, of course, the American US presidential election, which may not have a huge impact, but maybe it will, maybe it won't, who knows. And then on top of that, Anthony Albanese has the deadline in May 2025 to actually call election. If he doesn't call it before then, that his time basically runs out. Is the freedom movement ready for this? Is the Conservative and the no voters ready for this? Probably not. We've got a lot of work to do. In the next 12 months, I'm going to be working my ass off to get everyone ready, everyone on track, everyone with the free tools that they need to win the upcoming election. But heck, do we have a lot of work to do. The left are ready, they're organised, they're working like a well-oiled machine, whereas a lot of people in our movement, they don't know if they're coming or going. We need to get back on track. We need to get back in our groove just like we were during the referendum. And we need to fight this thing because this is our next big test with regards to the Australian conservative right-wing movement and whether we can take our country back from these people that sold us out to the jab, to the lockdowns, to everything. Stay tuned and I'll keep you in the loop.